it's not always work for me. Sometimes it's just doing things that I enjoy. So there's a couple of hobbies that I like. One is shooting firearms and reloading my own ammunition. I like to go target practicing once in a while. The other thing I enjoy is music. Okay. But today I'm going to focus on how I reload. Okay, I know there's a lot of different videos out there, but I just want to show you roughly the way I do it. So I'll either buy shells from my local gun store, or I'll just reuse the ones that I've shot already. So when you get the shells, they're dirty, and sometimes you can see they're a little dented, a little dinged. But this press will straighten it out. I use a Lee press. Okay, and I have my tools here. Okay, here are some that I've already deprimed and ran through my cleaner, so you can see they're a little bit shiny. Very nice. Alright. I do have different cans full of ammo that I've done, but basically this is how I do it. So the first step is you put in this die, which basically will take that out, and it will also size the hole. So it's pretty simple. So you basically just set up your die, and then you just slip that in there, and then when you pull the handle, you'll notice that the primer pops out and it resizes. Okay, so you can see the primer's gone, and now you can see the hole is nice and round. Okay, so that's the first step, is basically doing that. I have some blocks here that I made up out of oak. I have some other ones, you know, that I've made up. But basically that's the process. So what you do is you take your shell and you just run it on the pad with a little bit of oil on it. Okay, help it resize a little easier. And then you just, okay. So it takes a little while, but I mean, you get into a rhythm. It's just nice to do on a quiet afternoon. You know, and you can see the primer will pop out when I do this. Okay. And it collects them all in this tube here, which is kind of nice. Once it gets full, you just dump it out. Okay. So that's the first step. Once I get these all primed, then we'll move on to cleaning them after I run them through the cleaning machine. So that's the first step, and I'll carry on with the next step as soon as I get done with these. Okay. Okay, so the next step is, once I have my cases, I like to do 100 at a shot. Just makes it easier when you're doing loading to have an equal number. So next I use my tumbler. Okay, and there's different mediums you can use. Some people use corn. This is what I use. I'm not really sure exactly what it is, but that's what I use. And so basically what you want to do is take your shells, dump them in here. Okay, just get them in there. Just secure the top back on. And we're going to let this run for maybe 2 to 3 hours, and then they'll come out nice and shiny clean. Okay, so we'll let this run for a little while, and we'll be back. Okay, so I got all my shells finally deprimed and got the holes resized. So I'm going to put some of this stuff away. So this is the Lyman case lube pad that I use. Okay. Basically get this and you get some oil with it. Okay, and just saturate the pad. Okay, so I'll put that away, all set with that. Now on the press, we're going to take this piece out because we don't need this anymore. Okay, put it back in the case here, so there's other dies we'll be using. Alright, so the next step is we need to check the length on the cases to make sure they're long enough. Now, what I do is I actually made up these little sheets so that I can keep track of what stage I'm at and I don't forget any steps. So we've deprimed, we've resized, okay, so the next step is going to be trim the length. Alright, so there's a couple ways you can do this. So I go into my lineman manual, okay, everybody should have one of these if you're reloading. And if you look, we're going to do 223 Remingtons. The case length is going to be right here, 1.76 from the end to the end, okay? So, if I take a case and we measure it, I'm going to use my calipers, my vernier calipers, okay, and we will see. Alright, so this one says 1.75, that's 1.76, so we're actually under, so that's fine. Okay, try another one. That's 1.763, so it's just slightly over, okay? Alright, so you can measure them that way, or there's another way you can do this. You can get one of these, which basically measures the length of the case. Okay, this one says 223 right on it. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. And basically what you do is you drop the case in, the shell. Alright, you should fall right in. It should be flush on the top here. Now when you flip it over, let's see if I can get this. So the tip of the shell should be level with the top of this, okay? So as you can see, that one is flush, so that one's fine. Let's grab another one here. Okay, this one is slightly sticking up, so I may trim that one. Let's try another one. And this one is definitely sticking up. Okay, if you can see this. So what happens is when you resize the shells, they can get longer, okay? So you need to trim them back down to size. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. One is with these tools here, okay? And what you would do basically is put a shell in the holder. I'll put this down for a sec, okay? So you would put it in the holder and then you would turn it to lock it in. Oops. Okay, and that'll just hold the shell for you, alright? Then you would take this other piece and insert it, and it's already set to cut at this exact length. So you can see there's teeth on here, okay? So you put it in here and basically just do this a few times. Okay, and you can see it's shiny on the end now, where it's cut it. And let's see if that brought it down to size. So you can see it trimmed off some of that. It's got just a hair left on there that I want to trim off. Okay, so the other way is to use your press. And you have this piece here that'll fit in there, and that basically has cutting blades on it also. Okay. Okay, so we have this piece that goes in. It's where you quick trim. And just thread that down. These are all preset, but just look at the instructions. It'll tell you how to set it. And then this drops in there. There we go. Okay. So put your shell back in the holder. And you pull it up, and then just simply turn this around. Okay. And then you can see that also cuts it. Okay. So either way, you can do it this way or you can do it that way. But in any event, you need to trim the shells down to the correct length. Okay. So the next step will be cleaning them. Okay. So let's see how those shells came out. Okay, as you can see, they come out nice and shiny now. Alright, so this is what I normally do. I put them in a strainer and then a pan so we can kind of sift it all out. You will get some inside the shell, so you need to make sure you clean them all out good, but they do come out really nice. Okay, let's go to the next stage. Okay, so the next step is we got to clean them up. We got to clean out the primer pocket, and then we got to take care of the rough edges where we shortened them up. So there's two ways you can do this. You can do it this way, manually, basically reaming out the inside and then reaming the outside. And then there's more tips in there to do the bottom. However, if you're going to do a lot of them, you're probably better off getting yourself one of these, okay, by Lyman. And it makes life a lot easier. So basically what you do, we'll switch on the side, and it just makes it so much quicker and easier this way. Okay, so we're going to start off cleaning the bottom pocket. Alright, so we're going to go over to this bit here, and then we'll go to the next one. Okay, and then we're going to work on that end. Okay, now, so we've cleaned the inside. See, it's all nice and shiny in there now. And we've taken care of the edges, so there's no more burrs on there. And now it's going to be ready for the next step, which is going to be primer. Okay, so the next step is going to be to install the primers. And here's what I'm using, some Winchester primers for small rifle loads. And, oops, did I get these upside down? No. Okay, so here's your primers. And let's see, what I normally do is I'll take the other half of the tuna lid, and I'll do this. Okay, so now we get some primers here, and this is what is going to install the primers, which goes into your press. Alright, so just hook that in there like that. Now normally you're putting a shell in there and you're pushing up into a die. This time you're going the opposite way. You're going to be pushing down. You can see how that pops up. That's what's going to push the primer in. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll take a primer and we'll just put it right in here. And you want to make sure flat side down. Okay. And then we'll take a shell, put it in there. Now, like I said, instead of going up, you're going to go down. So you basically go down with it, give it a little push. Okay. Sometimes you'll see they don't seat all the way, which is not good. So if that's the case, you'll have to give it a little more. Okay. And there we go. Okay, so now that shell is primed. It's going to be ready for a powder and the bullet. Okay, so now we're going to work on the actual loading of the bullets. Alright, so here's what I got. I got a scale for weighing out the powder. I got the powder measurer. Okay. Got a couple of different types of bullets here. So we have 55 grain full metal jacket. Okay. These here have a pointed tip on them. I also have these here I got from Everglades, and these have a little bit more of a rounded tip on them. Okay. Alright, I'm going to be using Hodgdon powder today. I'm going to use the H4198. Now the next thing is you need to figure out how much powder you're going to use. Okay, now if you look on here, I don't know if you can read it, but it says Remington 223 this says 50 grain bullet. They want 20.5 grams. We're not using a 50 though, we're using a 55. I also have my handbook here, and if we go into here, they don't actually list the one I'm using. I used to use the H335, but they don't list the Hodgdon on here. So what I'm doing is I go on the website, okay? So you go on to Hodgdon.com, and then what you do is you can enter in the information. So I put on here 55 grain Hodgdon powder, and we're using the H4198, okay? So then you go to update data. Alright, so this is telling me that I should be using 17.5 grains to 19.5 grains, okay? So somewhere in between there. I'll probably go down the middle and go with like 18.5, alright? So what we need to do is put some powder in here, okay? So we'll take this, and then we're going to take the cap off of here, and we'll just fill this up. Okay, got about that much in there. Now what we need to do is make sure we're getting the correct load here. So I'm going to take my scale, if I can get this open. There we go. Alright, first thing we got to do is zero this thing out. Alright, so we're on grains. Okay, so now she's at 0. Now this should be still set up from the last time I was using it, so it should still have correct amount of charge, or just about. So let's find out. Alright, so I'm going to put this over here. Alright, so I'm going to take a charge. Okay, and we get 21.3, so that's a little heavy for what I want. So we'll just dump this back in here. And then you can just regulate how much with this dial here. So we're going to turn this in a little bit to shorten the amount that we use. Okay, well, let's see what that does. I'm trying to find a good spot where I can put this where you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, now that went to 16.4, so I went a little too much. Okay, so we're pretty consistent there at 18.2. So I'm okay with that. We'll go with that number for now. Alright, so okay, so the next step, we have to put our dye in here, okay? And close this up. Now you can make different recipes depending on how your gun is and how you want it to shoot. Basically, this was a load I made up, and I was using 24.5 grains, but it was a different powder I was using, and it was actually, I had a pretty good mixture going on there. So this was only at 30 yards, only because that's as far as my indoor range would go. This one here, I actually got 2 bullets in the same hole. This one, I got these nice group of 3, this was a flyer, and then this one, I got a nice group of 4. So that was a pretty accurate load, and I was pretty happy with that one. But that was with a different powder, so I'm trying this powder now. I want to see what's going to work on this one. So, what we have to do, put this down over here. Maybe over here. Oh, can't really find a good spot for this. Alright, so what we're going to do is we'll take a shell, and now there's a couple of different ways you can measure the length of the bullet. You can go by what the book says. You can go by this, which says complete overall length is 2.130. Okay. We can break out our calipers to make sure we're getting the correct measurement on that. Put this down for a sec. Okay, so we'll turn this on, zero this out. Okay, so we'll zero there. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a charge in the shell, and then we're going to seat the bullet. Alright, so let's do this. Okay, I usually look inside just to make sure it did dump a load in there, which it did. Okay, so now we'll come back over to the press here. Maybe that's a better view. Okay, and we're going to take the shell with the powder, and we're going to place a bullet on top. Now this one's preset, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to back it off a little bit just to make sure that it doesn't sink in too deep on the first shot. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put it up in there. Okay, now you can see that it's not deep enough yet. Okay, and if we measure it, they say 2.13, and I got 2.3, so we got a ways to go here. Okay, so we're going to screw it in a little bit. Try it again. Yeah, this looks good. Okay, so we got two shells now, and basically the only thing we got left to do is just crimp the top of that. Okay, this is your crimping die, and that's what crimps it. What you do next is you go ahead and crimp it. So we're going to take one of these shells, and we'll put it in here, and then we're just going to go up all the way. We'll give it a little push, and that puts a little crimp right on the end of it. Alright, so that is basically your completed product here, and that's it. So I hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions, let me know. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, give a like. I'll talk to you next time.